I'm County Commissioner Kathy Chandler Henry from Eagle County, and I want to welcome you on behalf of my fellow commissioners, Jeannie McQueenie and Matt Schur. Thanks to all of you who are tuning in tonight and watching this, and thank you for taking care of your neighbors. We want to express our great gratitude to the Type 1 Incident Management Team for being here with us. We are so grateful, and also for all our local responders who are helping. I just want to let folks know that everyone in the county, all the county departments are here, that we're staffed up. We are helping the incident management teams, all the firefighters, and we're here to help you, the county residents. So we want to hear from you if there are things that you need. We are here to help. You can go for more information any time of the day to ecemergency.org. To the Spanish language Facebook page, Mi Salud Mi Charco. And if you're from Garfield County, then you can go to garfield-county.com. We're excited to be simulcasting this evening in both English and Spanish. And so I'm going to turn it over to the fire folks, and thanks everyone for being here.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that welcome. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Mislivy. I'm the Public Information Officer for Great Basin Team 1. Again, like she said, we'll be airing this simulcast between Spanish and English, so appreciate that and sharing the information that we have. This information will also be forwarded on the Grizzly Creek Facebook page after the end of the meeting. We know a lot of people like to comment and provide information, but a lot of stuff that we want to make sure is fire related in the comments so we can help everyone get the best questions and the best answers they have to those questions. So please, if you have fire specific questions, please fill them into the chat. And other than that, we'll get this meeting started. So welcome. The Grizzly Creek community meeting will start off with Jeff Serber, Great Basin Team 1, Fire Operations Section Chief. He's going to give us an overview of the fire.
Thanks, Jennifer. The overview of the fire I'll give is just a little bit of history, and then we'll go into what's going on today. So historically, you know, as everyone knows, it started near more towards the west side of the current fire, and it's progressed somewhat to the west, but mostly to the east. A lot of the fires this time of the year do progress from southwest to northeast based upon the summertime, typical summertime flow of winds. So what we've got here is the typical, the untypical part of this fire, atypical part of this fire has been the canyon. Glenwood Canyon, obviously, for the folks that are here, they know that topography, and what that topography does is it mixes the winds in a way that really influences the ability for the fire to spot back and forth across the canyon. So anytime there's winds aloft, the wind funnels through these different side canyons that are part of the fire, and that funnel through. In fact, you know, let's go back out to about here. You can see that better. The topographical influence funnels those winds, and what happens, what has happened since we've been here, is that the winds, whether it's 9 o'clock at night or whether it's midday, they funnel through there, they get erratic, and then they throw embers across the highway and start the other side on fire. And then the fire has been topographically influenced. The fires run up the sides of the canyon, those steep cliff faces, and then it catches the overriding winds and carries it to the east. So for today, what we have, I know a lot of the folks around here have seen different columns on different days, and it's difficult to judge how far away things are, especially at night. And so this map really helps kind of display what's happening. So what we'll do is we'll start out at Red Mountain with a view into No Name, and you can kind of see how that fire is currently laying down into No Name. And we move on to Glenwood, to the Adventure Park, a little view from the Adventure Park of where the perimeter currently is. And then on to Lookout Mountain. You can kind of look from Lookout Mountain, you can see directly up No Name. And this perimeter is current as of last night's infrared flight. Then on to Grizzly Creek, the put out on I-70, looking up, looking southerly. then a view from the Bear Ranch rest stop. And finally, the Bear Ranch looking towards I-70. So I'm going to zoom back out and kind of, it makes it easier for me to talk about today, to have the full fire that we can zoom back down to. Working on it. Is it going to finally go here in a second? Come on. For some reason, it's taking a long time. Here, let's go like this probably, huh? This one? Oh, is that going to go?
This one with the red on it?
Yep. Go right back to that.
Double click.
Okay, thanks. So what we'll do today, for today, is start right here down on our division. November takes off from I-70. You can see currently where that line is, where it was last night. It's dropped all the way into No Name. It's been in the bottom of No Name here for several days. It has not crossed over, mostly due to aircraft use down in the bottom holding it, and the crew. We have a hand crew down there, aircraft, and they've strung a lot of hose up that canyon to keep that from climbing up the ridge towards it and coming down towards the adventure park and back towards town. The fire's been able to, in the last couple of days, cross over the ridge between Grizzly and No Name and start to creep down into No Name. This afternoon when I flew, it had progressed. I would expect that it's going to be close to the bottom by the end of the day. We've worked aircraft on this stretch of the fire right here all day with helicopter buckets of retardant from the portable batch plant that's set up on the highway down on Interstate 70. They've just been going back and forth dumping retardant on this thing to try to slow down the way it's traveling down into No Name. We're trying to keep it from crossing. You can see a lot of rock bands in here that will slow it down when it does cross, if and when it does cross. But it will be able to find its wick to move up this opposite slope somewhere. It's going to find one that's going to come up through there unless we can continue to hammer on it with aircraft. And the use of the aircraft is limited mostly by smoke conditions. So a lot of the time when the fire makes a move, we can't get in there with the aircraft to try to stop it because the visibility is limited. So here you can kind of see where it lays between No Name and Grizzly. This fire today, when I flew it, was very similar. This perimeter here, the perimeter on the on the east side of Grizzly has grown. You can see the more continuous fuels in here. This has continued to burn fairly well, probably all the way out to about here now. One thing I will say about today, the advance of the fire was limited by the weather really well today. As you could probably tell from town, we never got a real heavy wind on it. So the smoke laid in there a lot of the day. We were still able to fly. The smoke wasn't too thick to see through, but the fire never picked up a lot of energy today in most of the cases. So we are now, here's Grizzly, and then we're coming across that whole northern area where I'm sure you folks know where Coffee Pot Road is right here. And it's gonna progress up through these canyons unimpeded because we don't have the ability to go down there and chase it right on the head of the fire. So what we've been doing is working the flanks. We have division supervisors out here that are scouting opportunities to put a line across here and tie it back into Grizzly somewhere so that we can cut off this northerly flow. The other thing that has happened on this fire, on both sides of this fire, the north and the south side, is that the minute it hits the top, it cranks and it makes a whole ton of smoke, and it caps off with an ice cap on top, and you can see it from town. And then it hits the top up here, and it has a real hard time sustaining itself. You can see as we come around onto X-ray, I'll show you that especially, but it's happening over here on the north side too. So it gets up here, obviously there's snow up here, so that's the high country. When it gets up into here around Coffee Pot Road, it flattens out, you get more aspen. It's still actively burning, but it can't get as much intensity built up. And when it gets up in here, it's being much easier to catch the fire. Yesterday over here on Coffee Pot Road right here, it came kind of roaring up through here, and we had folks there, we had aircraft there on the road, and it found several opportunities to pop up through there, but you'll see right here, It's all about the vegetation and the slope. So it comes up that steep slope. It's got preheated fuels from the sun shining on it all day, and then it comes cranking up there, hits the top, maybe throws a few spots, and this is not sustaining fire. For those of you that know where the Royal Elk Ranch is, that's the house right there. So basically, today when you saw that column, I got a call about a column that was visible from town, and they wanted to know where it was. That column was right here. This fuel burned today. So what it did was it came up, it made a big cloud of smoke. It gets people concerned, and then we dropped a lot of retardant up here with heavy air tankers and to stop it, and I don't think you're seeing much smoke out there anymore, so it did not cross Coffee Pot Road today. But tomorrow's map, the perimeter will be farther out on this north side. This piece, fortunately, we put about 20 loads of retardant between where it crosses the road and the river yesterday, coming down this slope, because it had a pretty good head of steam on it. That's the smoke you saw yesterday afternoon that people were concerned about. And we just put a lot of retardant on this thing. And today, we're able to get crews in here. What happened in here is that the fuels will not carry the fire when the wind's not blowing. A lot of that stuff, when it falls out of the trees, it can't get going again because it has no ground fuel. So pretty much what that happened down here low. In fact, we didn't put any retardant down in here low because the fire just lost its oomph, and we can walk along the edge and put it out now. So our intent is to put this fire out from I-70 to that road using people and bulldozers and helicopters. And it's looking really good right now to do that. I don't want to be too optimistic. We're also over here. So here's Coffee Pot Road, just to give you an idea of what else we're working on. We don't just work on one place at a time. Here's the Coffee Pot Road. We have a line right now being constructed with a bulldozer off of this ridge right here, going down. I take that back, that's not the ridge it's on. It is on this ridge right here. So basically what we're doing is we're building another line over here in case I'm wrong, and we lose the ability to catch it in a, let me get this spun around, catch it in where I said we were gonna catch it between here and here. I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to catch it right here. But, and you can hold me to that and I'll be embarrassed if I'm wrong. So today was a great day. We had just some really good success because of the weather. Over here on what we call our Division X-ray, to get you oriented, this right here is the Bear Ranch. The fire came right down to these structures right here last night. The fire edge is actually farther down than this shows. Bulldozer line was put around the back of these structures, and it's burned down to the back of these structures right now. Nothing burned at Bear Ranch yesterday. So the fire has progressed a little bit more today, but you can kind of see where it went, wind driven again, out to the east, across the county line. Big lava flow right here. You can see that's rock, and that's what stopped that forward progression. There's a big rim right here too. This is flat right here, and that's heavily sloping, and that big lava flow is like a catcher's mitt, just stopped that fire right there. So we have folks up here right now. They are taking this road right here, and they have a feller buncher and a bulldozer working down here onto Spruce Ridge, and you can see Spruce Ridge is like somebody put it there for us. We painted this whole thing with retardant today with heavy air tankers, so it's all red now, and I feel like we have a good chance of being able to catch at that. And again, I don't want to sound too optimistic because it's all dependent on the weather. It's all about the wind, and so just keep that in mind. But you can see this barren hillside right here is huge. It's a huge opportunity for us, and it carries all the way down here towards the river. So we're looking at using heavy equipment and holding it as much as possible right there on that ridge. The lava flow up here, it comes up, it hits this rim rock, and it's having a hard time sustaining itself. We're using aircraft, mostly helicopters up here, working with hand crews. We have a spike camp at Green Lake. We have 100 and some odd people up there that spend the night, and they're all up there working all day long, go back to spike camp at night. So they're making a lot of progress on this Division Zulu, what we call Zulu on our maps, and this is X-ray, this one over here is Alpha. So, and you can see the green spot right there is Lookout Mountain. So it kind of gives you an orientation. Alpha over here on this part of the fire, that's what you can see from the camera that people look at the gondola. They're looking right up into here, and you'll see some smoke along this edge. The steeper part of this edge was worked with aircraft, but we can't get people in there. And we're paying attention to that, especially with the north winds, to make sure that that doesn't eat its way through the dry retardant and be able to sneak out again. So we also put a bulldozer in there this afternoon to reinforce this edge that hasn't been worked by people. It's just been subdued by aircraft, and there's still heat in there. And we have a structure, what we call a structure branch, that is made up of probably 15 to 20 engines right down the bottom. They spend most of their time, today they were over at the Bear Ranch cleaning up some problem areas over there. I should say that the next ranch, I don't know the name of the next ranch to the east of the Bear Ranch, the one that I was talking about where we want to catch it on spruce. There's another ranch right down in this area, and I don't know the name of that one. It's got a pond and a house and stuff down there, but anyway, that's what our structure group has been doing. That's made up of engines. They go in, they help the homeowner or the landowner. They brush out around some property, and they get ready for in case the fire comes down and impacts their property. We have that group down on the highway. They're also assisting the local forest with, well, the local, I should say, fire district. We have a large initial attack area in case you get another lightning fire or human-caused fire around here. We have them in a place where they can respond and hopefully hold the fire down to a smaller level. So we have a few extra resources here that are engaged on the fire, but we would send them away to another fire fairly close by if it were to start. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate your very important presentation, and also for the presentation of the Google flyover. Very descriptive and informative for the community. Next, we have William Basie. He is our Air Resource Advisor. He's going to speak on smoke and the effects to the weather.
Thank you. Like they said, my name is William Basie. I'm here as an Air Resource Advisor. I'm here to model the smoke and to reach out to the public to let them know when times are going to be bad, when they're going to be good. So we're looking at all the communities in this area. And with this fire, we've just looked at the perimeter, but as you know, smoke doesn't stay at the perimeter. Smoke can travel hundreds of miles, especially in this dry condition. So with this fire, we're seeing a lot of impacts in the Glenwood Springs area and all the communities over there. And on the east side, we're seeing a lot of impacts in Gypsum and also Eagle here. We're even seeing impacts as far as Aspen to the south and even farther than that. The reason we want to reach out to the public and talk to them and let them know why they should be concerned about smoke is because a lot of the particles are so small that if you took one piece of hair out of your head, about 10 smoke particles of PM 2.5 or less can wrap around your hair. So it's smaller than sand, it's smaller than flour that you bake with, and it's a lot of times so small you can't see it. A lot of the smoke that we see impacting and coming in the morning and at night is stuff that we have the ability as humans to cough up, or our nose hairs will catch and kind of get out. That's not the dangerous stuff. The dangerous stuff is the really fine particles of smoke that you breathe it in, it goes down into your lungs, and it can get into your bloodstream and cause long-term effects. So what I'm doing here is working with the team. We're trying to reach out to the public as best we can to let you know when the best times are going to be. This canyon is beautiful, and it's large, and it's very good at trapping smoke in there. So smoke goes up, obviously, we all know that, and it hangs out in that atmosphere, but it's so fine, it's just little particles. I like to think of them as fine dust particles. They're really ash but fine particles. And at night, it cools down, and those ash particles want to stick to something. They want to move around, and then they find the moisture in the air, and they stick to that moisture in the air, and it sinks. And that's why smoke sinks down into the valleys at night. So that's why we're getting heavy amounts of smoke in the valleys. And then as the sun comes up, it's a beautiful day, and you're like, oh, today's going to be a great day. And then all of a sudden we start seeing the smoke rise. And that's when you start seeing those columns, probably around 10, 11 in the morning. You start seeing, oh, the fire's getting a little active. Same thing with the smoke. Smoke's getting a little active. It's raising up, it's moving around. And as those winds battle in this canyon, from going up canyon, down canyon, that's when a lot of the areas, like in Glenwood Springs, the last few days, we saw a lot of smoke impacts, mostly in the early mornings and between 11 and, say, 2 o'clock. Eagle in this area on the east side, we're seeing a lot more impacts later in the afternoon because the wind's starting to shift. That smoke is starting to rise. So each day we're working on producing a forecast, and we're getting the information out through various social media methods and email. And I encourage you all out there, it is beautiful. This is a beautiful place. I encourage you to go out and enjoy it, but just be aware of what is happening with smoke, and the worst times to be out there, probably later in the evening, and probably early morning, usually that 10, 11 time as that smoke's starting to rise. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Appreciate that update for smoke. Next, we have Marty Adele, Great Basin Incident Management Type 1 Team Incident Commander, for a general outlook on the fire.
All right. Can you hear me? Okay. Once again, as Jennifer stated, I'm Marty Adele, Incident Commander of the Great Basin Team 1, and I'll give you the outlook looking forward on this fire, on the Grizzly Creek fire. First of all, I will give you a little bit of perspective that's what led up to this current position and where we're looking forward into. Right now, nationally, this is typically the busiest part of our fire season, and not only are we busy here in Colorado with the numerous large fires in the northern Colorado, but also, as of late, we're getting a fair amount of dry lightning through California, Oregon, Idaho, and Nevada. The reason I'm telling you this is we cannot fight this fire by ourselves. We have to get resources. When I say resources, I mean hotshot crews, engine crews, dozers, aircraft, whether it be retardant ships or helicopters, and the management or overhead to manage these fires. As we start picking up on fires nationally, those resources become more and more taxed and less able to come here. So when we are putting resource orders in for another hotshot crew, that list nationally may already be taxed. And if it's not, they generally take several days to get here because they are coming from far reaches. Also, one of the bigger things that Colorado is dealing with right now is a combination of a few things. First of all, the fuel moistures. A lot of the fuel moistures that are the live fuel moistures of plants, trees, shrubs, and grasses that generally have a water content in them that can possibly slow a fire's progression or allow them not to be so susceptible to flame or flame impingement, but also the dead grasses, sages, and brush that litter the ground. That is also very dry. We have noticed here in Colorado, throughout the Great Basin and the Southwest, that the monsoons that normally hit this time of year have been absent. The normal flush starting in early July, mid-July, that push up in this area have not arrived. The amount of precip or rain that we have received is very minimal. Thus, the moisture content of whether it be dead or live fuels is very, very low. Once again, allowing that fire activity to increase. Also, in the past several weeks, without moisture, the temperatures have been very high, record placing in some areas. The relative humidities, or the amount of moisture that the air can hold, is very low. And then in the past several days, we've been dealing with a fair amount of wind. So looking forward and kind of predicting what we're going to be dealing with for the next week to several weeks, after talking with the meteorologists that are a part of this team, he is predicting that we are going to continue to see warm temperatures, average or above, and very low relative humidities, and a very low chance of precipitation or rain. To combine with that, we're also looking at possible thunderstorm activity later on next week, which in this case most likely will be dry thunderstorms, possible a little bit of lightning, high winds, erratic winds. The problem with thunder cells is, depending on where that thunder cell is sitting geographically, the winds can come out of it at different rates and at different directions. So depending on where it is to your location, we can have a wind switch, a wind change that is maybe outside of the norm or what is not predicted. When we're talking about this fire specifically, I did not want to paint this rosy picture that everything's going to be grandiose. I want to make sure that we know what we're looking at. With the discussion that Jeff had in the progression we are making, we will continue to make that progression, but I also want to let you know, as the citizenry of this area, that this fire will continue to burn for some time. There's a lot of fuel out there. The weather is setting up not exactly in our favor, but with great effort between the local community, the local resources, Forest Service, the BLM, many of the cooperators and the partners that we've teamed up with here in Colorado. We will continue to have progress forward. It just may take a little while, and you will see some more fire growth and a lot of smoke for several days to a week or so. That's what I have for the forecast for the next week or so.
All right, thank you, Marty, for that update. Next, we have Eagle County Sheriff James Van Beek. He's going to give an information update on evacuations, pre-evacuations, e-alerts for both Eagle County and Garfield County.
So can I also go? And I'm Sheriff Lou Valario.
Yeah, you can.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. I guess the quick upside is that none of the evacuations or the evacuation orders have changed since a couple days ago, so that's good news. It's been a lot of communication between all the teams and greatly appreciated, good information, good interaction, but nothing has moved. So whoever was evacuated, which is that will remain so. Pre-evacuation orders still stay the way they are. Again, we are struggling to try to communicate with everybody in all the communities and trying to reach them on every level. And we're going to emphasize that in Eagle County, we urge everybody to sign up at www.ecemergency.org or go there, and you can see the interactive map, and you can also see all the closure orders. You can see the pre-evacuation, the evacuations, and all the updated information. So again, www.ecemergency.org. To get the alerts, www.ecalert.org, and that is to get alerts on your phones as to what's happening, what's in your area. It's one of the easiest and best ways for us to communicate with you. In Garfield County, to sign up for those alerts is garco911.com. One of the things that we would like to emphasize to everybody still again is the Ready, Set, Go programs. And we urge everybody to be have bags packed, have your essentials, be prepared. Try to do as much mitigation around your house, moving brush and anything that's is likely to cause to burn easier away from your house as far as possible, especially if you're in the hot zones. Have bags packed, have your essentials, have medication, have a plan in place, and start calling ahead. Please do not wait until we sit there and say it's time to go before you start packing your bags. You're going to leave things behind. Plan ahead. If you want to leave the area, nobody's stopping you from leaving the area either. So just because we haven't said you have to evacuate, you're welcome to go. We're also asking everybody on the roads that are closed to stay away from them. So Sweetwater Road, locals only, and those helping the locals to get in and out, and because they're still in a pre-evac. Coffee Pot Road and Coffee Pot Springs is still closed. Colorado River Road, the lower part of the Colorado River, is still open, except that you have to go through some checkpoints, and we're asking everyone to please avoid that area, because for the firefighters and for those who are evacuating their homes, to leave that open. We're asking everyone to come in from the upper side down to those areas. Also, the river. There's been a lot of rafters and tubers, and they're trying to get on the river. We're asking everyone to stay off of that. And Larry, you can correct me, but I have a note here that says that BLM actually closed from from Catamount, all the way down to Dotsero. No boat launches, no launches. Is that correct?
That's essentially right.
Thank you. So again, we're urging everyone to stay away from that area, please, and it's only for the access to those who are who live up there, and for those who are fighting the fire. On the Garfield County side, Coffee Pot Springs remains, the evacuations for Garfield County are Coffee Pot Springs, No Name, Bear Ranch, Lookout Mountain, Homestead Estates, Spring Valley Ranch, High Aspen Ranch, Coulter Creek, and then again, we're telling you, Cottonwood Pass from the base on the Garfield side, and Cottonwood Pass on the base from Eagle County side remains closed except for emergency situations. I think that's it. I think I got all the notes. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Sheriff Van Beek. Next, we have Larry Sandoval from Colorado Valley BLM. He's the field manager, going to be talking about closures and BLM information.
Mike's not coming on. That's okay. I'll try to project. So good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. I just want to talk for a few minutes briefly about some of the closures that have been put in place. Sheriff Van Beek alluded to some of those on the Colorado River earlier. So, really we've put a few closures in place, an area closure of BLM lands back on Tuesday, I think it was, after the fire got going, and it looked like it was going to make a lot of runs and have a lot of activity, and so we made the decision on Tuesday to close basically all the BLM lands that are west of the Colorado River Road and then south of Glenwood Canyon, kind of tied in with the Forest Service closure order that was in place. And that was really to help facilitate safe fire operations as well as protect the public safety first and foremost. As the week went on, the fire continued to be very active, as folks know, and made runs to the east. And so as fire operations increased, as the fire moved east, it became obvious that we were going to see increased traffic all along the Colorado River Road. And so on Friday, this past Friday, I made the decision to go ahead and close a number of sites along the river. And so on Friday, BLM closed the boat ramps at Dotsero, Cottonwood Landing, as well as the campground and boat ramp at Lions Gulch. And so again, those were really made to help facilitate safe travels along the Colorado River Road with the increased traffic for fire support. The duration of those closures right now, it's kind of undetermined, but I would say that it's going to be consistent with the need for safe fire operations and keeping our firefighters safe as they're traveling up and down the roads. It's always a tough thing. We recognize that we're in the dog days of summer and it's hot. People want to get out and enjoy the river, and so there is good news that we still have a number of miles of the Colorado River that are open for folks to get out and enjoy in your canoes, in your rafts, to get out fishing. And really, if you go a little further east over to the Highway 131 corridor, we've got opportunities at State Bridge going down to two bridges and then on down to Catamount. And as the sheriff alluded to earlier, it's essentially folks are going to need to pull out their boats at Catamount because it's going to be closed. You won't be able to access at those lower points that I described before. So if you do go over that direction, I would just caution you to look to go during the week, because those are very popular areas during the weekends, limited parking, and so I think you'll have a more enjoyable time if you do go during the weekdays. If you do go on the weekends, just go early. And with that, if you have any questions about these closures or other information on BLM lands in the area, you can call 970-876-9000. Again, that's 970-876-9000. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, for that BLM update. Next, we're going to go to Scott Fitzwilliams for a U.S. Forest Service update. He is the White River National Forest Supervisor.
Thanks. And again, thanks, Marty, your team. There's over 600 firefighters and aviators here right now working their butts off to try and get a handle on this, and greatly appreciated that you're here. Thanks to the communities, Eagle and Garfield County and all the communities. It makes it easier when working with people who are easy to work with and who are willing to collaborate, cooperate, and problem solve together. So much appreciated. I always feel really fortunate to work in these communities because they make it easier. So, in addition to this fire on National Forest, there's fires around Colorado, as has been mentioned, and we're doing a lot of work coordinating with them and trying to get, as Marty said, resources in the right places. It's a rough time right now. So we're just going to have to all be patient. A couple things I want to address, and one is, probably the most common question we all get, and is probably on everyone's mind the most, is when is I-70 going to open? We all want it. We recognize this is a huge, huge impact to our communities, to the West Slope, to economies, to commerce. It's a really high priority. But here's the deal. We have to have a few things happen, and then eventually the ultimate decision is CDOT's and the highway patrols. But before we'll even get to that point, the first thing we need to do is make sure there's not active fire. And having been through that canyon quite a few times, it's not safe right now. There's fire sometimes right up to the road. There are trees on fire right next to the road. And there are firefighters and people moving up and down that need to do their job. So that's first and foremost for the opening of I-70 is getting that active fire taken care of and managed to a situation where it's safe. After that, we need to at least spend some time looking at, there are trees falling on the road that have burned or are still on fire. So it's a tree, debris, rock, directly related to the fire clearing issue that we have to take care of. So that's number two. After that, we'll work with CDOT and the engineers and Highway Patrol to do everything we can to get that open safely. And how they do it, that's a little bit out of our area, but we're working on. Second, next thing, again, similar to what Larry said, we have some large areas of the White River National Forest closed to the public. We, again, beg you and ask you stay away from those areas so the firefighters can do their job, so we're not putting anyone in danger. I know it's a burden. Fortunately, it's a big forest, and there's a lot of public land that hopefully people can find other places to go. In the last couple days, we realized, we're just 2 weeks away from the beginning of archery season. So Tomorrow, I'll be meeting with folks from CPW to talk through how we're going to communicate that to people who've maybe had a lifetime hunt planned in these areas and they won't be able to go. But we're working through that. Understand that that's not a lot of fun. And it's a real, it's a hassle for people who have planned that. Questions about Hanging Lake? As we reported, was it yesterday? Days are all mixed up. That, as far as we know, and when we were able to fly over it, Hanging Lake directly around the lake was still intact. There is fire at the bottom of the trail, at the trailhead. And we're hoping that maybe someone could, someone that's in aircraft can swing by there. It's just not the highest priority right now, and so we've got to put our resources where the highest priority is. But there have, you've probably seen already reports on the internet, but if not, check it out. We have started to escort media through the canyon at times when it's safe, and so you'll be able to get a little better picture of what's going on in there to see, not both, the damage the fire's done, and I think you'll be surprised to see that there's many parts of the canyon you really can't tell. The vegetation's still intact, and hopefully it'll stay that way. So it's going to change, but it's not, I don't want you to think in your head it's all blackened canyon walls, and that's good because we all love that canyon so much. Let's see, a couple other things. We've received questions, a lot of questions about the impacts to wildlife, vegetation, watersheds, forest resources, if you will, and there will be, no question. There's going to be. Our highest concern is right now, what are the impacts to infrastructure? We've got power lines that are out. We've got our power poles, and the power's not a big issue. The Glenwood Springs water supply is a really big issue, and they're working real hard, so we're assessing some of that. Again, as I said the other night, wildlife, they can deal. I don't know if it's built into their lizard brains, but they've been dealing with wildfire for a long time, and the effects short-term are some, and long-term, habitat sometimes is actually improved. But part of what we do with every fire is we do a burnt area emergency response, and we call them bear teams, and we've already called one of those in, and they're on their way, and I'm not sure exactly when they'll be there. I think we're going to brief them in tomorrow. They're going to be already beginning to assess some of the resource issues, mainly focused upon watersheds, debris flows, flooding, things like that, trying to do some predicting longer term. So that's all going on. So I just want to wrap up. Again, I've said this before. Marty said it. Given the weather predictions, given what I've heard is even possibly record heat next week, this is going to be with us a while. Hopefully, we had a great day today, a better day today, and we have a couple more. And as Jeff pointed out in his Google flyover, we think there's areas we can get a handle on this fire. But we have a long way to go. It's hot, it's dry, and there's still a lot of country out there. So I ask for your patience. We all understand that this is a pain. This is really painful. It's painful economically. It's painful for our way of life. Sleeping at night, depending on where you are, is difficult because the smoke is atrocious in places. We're all in this together, and so as someone that lives in these communities and works in these communities, I am with you on this. We're just going to have to pull together and work together to get through this. But it's going to be a while before we can, kind of sit back and relax a little bit. So we again, thanks for the support. The cavalry is here. We're working our tails off, and hopefully we'll get this thing turned around. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Scott. And thank you, everyone, for this great presentation. This concludes the presentation part of the community meeting. During the meeting, we have compiled a list of questions that you guys have submitted. We have compiled those, and Tracy Weaver, our moderator, will be presenting those questions now. Tracy, go ahead.
So I have a few questions first for our Operations Section Chief, Jeff Serber. First off, can you address the status of the Coulter Creek area?
I apologize. Coulter?
Coulter Creek.
That's on the south side, southeast side.
South of Alpha.
So zoom me in here on Coulter. because
Go
there's-
east and south.
Keep going, start
Go-
coming right there. Now, down,
Down,
Where?
come to the west.
come to the,
Or
To the
south.
west?
South.
come south,
South.
South.
that area.
So that unburned area down
Talking-
there.
Oh, the unburned?
Yeah.
Nope, down,
This way?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, that's the headwaters of the creek? Is that what we're saying? Is this,
Right off the reservoir?
there's Bear Ranch right here, so this is Ike.
No, no, no. Come down to the south. Coulter
South
Creek
one?
is right off of Cottonwood Pass Road.
Oh, you're talking much farther then. Hang on, let me get my mouse going the right way. Are you seeing it yet? There's the reservoir, consolidated reservoir in the middle. Where would it be from there? 'Cause I haven't seen it on my maps, probably because it's out, kind of outside the fire area, is that where?
Yeah, it's definitely outside the
It's
fire.
one of the areas that we evacuated because it was approaching, so it's off that finger.
It's off this finger probably
The
right
lower
here.
finger, right in that area is,
Okay, what these fingers are doing right now is not progressing very rapidly. You'll see this is last night's infrared. This, like I pointed out before, this finger right here ran into lava. We have folks, excuse me, I'm sorry, I keep clicking on that. We have folks in here trying to contain this portion of the fire from moving. It's not moving rapidly. I just flew through there about an hour and a half ago, and this is smoldering. I also sent a picture to some people that really shows it well from the other side, from the coffee pot side, that this is just small smokes kind of all through here today. So this will continue unless or until we get in here and cut, let's say, this timber band off and stop this particular piece. It'll continue to work through the timber. These openings, we don't have, something I should probably explain when you look at the map. We have what's called an infrared interpreter, and that person draws this edge. And it doesn't mean that everything that's pink on the screen is black. Because that person is interpreting where the edge of the fire is and including everything in the interior as showing it as burned. But if you have pockets, it could be 50 acres, it could be larger than that have not burned, they will not show up on this in the interior. There's a limitation, an acreage limitation to islands of vegetation that are unburned. And so you'll see that on this fire in particular, when I zoom back out, there are no islands inside this fire that are shown that they're still green. But like Scott said, up the I-70 corridor, there's a lot of areas that are unburned still. They just don't show up on this map. So to get back to your question, on the creek, Coulter area is
Coulter
probably
Creek, and it's that subdivision
right
that's in
here,
there.
this series of roads here.
There you go.
So we have a camp right here at Green Lake where the firefighters are sleeping. They feel very comfortable there. All the flying I've done, we have dozer line all along these trails, these Jeep trails and things up on top. So this is all pretty much, if you'll compare the perimeter right here over the last 2 or 3 days, you'll see very little movement in the fire. And that's what I'd like to emphasize, is that because of the fact that we've been up here putting out the spot fires, and this fire doesn't really want to travel through these open areas, it follows the timber stands that are either dead timber from bug kill or spruce fir type, and then it stops. So it basically, I have no doubt that this will likely burn this area in here because it's heavier fuels, but I have an okay to say that the status of that fire moving towards Coulter Creek for the folks, or the Coulter area for those folks that are concerned in this area, is that this right now is not moving.
Okay.
So the next question is kind of related to that in that same general area. Do you know how far the fire is from Colorado Mountain College, which is just to the west of Colton Creek, correct?
When I've driven up there, so yeah, we're talking right over there, right?
That green spot right
That
there.
should be
Yep.
the college right
That's
there.
it.
So this area, you go past the college, you go up, this is the road closure right here. We have a camp in this field right here, and the fire, as you can see, is over here. So I would estimate probably 8 miles.
How long?
8, just a guess. What do you think it is?
3.5, 4.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking the road that goes over there, but
Several miles?
yeah.
It's miles, yeah.
Okay, 5, let's call it, but it's, to me, it's, that would be the answer.
It's a ways.
Okay,
Couple more ops questions. Is a canyon rock protecting Glenwood Springs?
say that again?
Canyon rock helping to protect.
Is that a
Glenwood Springs.
specific geographic area called Canyon Rock, or are they just asking whether the rock
The
is?
rock
canyon.
wall, I think that, yeah,
Is it protecting it?
helping to protect it, yeah.
You can see right here that there's a reason this fire has not progressed as rapidly right there, because it has to come downhill against the prevailing winds, and the fuel is much sparser. So yes, in a lot of cases, the rocky, sparse areas are protecting the town from a fire that advances rapidly. It can continue to advance, but not near as rapidly as it would if it was continuous fuel.
Thank you. And then one more, there was some specific questions about different cabins in different areas, but are there structure protection plans basically around the fire for cabins in the area?
Yes, for everything that we feel has a, I don't want to call it an imminent threat, but at the time, we feel like there's a threat to something that is, I guess, has potential. Like the previous question, if there's a cabin and it's totally surrounded by rock and it could probably weather a fire blowing right by it, then yeah, our plan would be to look at it and say, you know, that thing's 99% sure or safe, so we won't do anything with it. That doesn't necessarily exist on this fire, but that's how we look at it. The other cabins that may be in the area where we think the fire is advancing, we take actions. Anything can be from flying a person in if it's inaccessible and moving the wood piles away from the cabin, and you know, digging up brush, maybe a little bit of brush around the cabin, and doing a little bit of work to keep creeping fire. A lot of the time what it ends up consuming homes when no one is there, or cabins, is a creeping fire that creeps up the siding and then burns the whole house because no one's there. So we work on vegetation reduction around those dwellings that we think have the potential for fire to get there. Sometimes if it's a safe area, we stay there with it. Other times, if it's not if we don't feel it's safe to keep human beings there, we'll set up sprinkler systems and leave. So there's a variety of things that we've done and that we will do as the fire expands to protect private property.
Thank you. Next few questions are for William, our Air Resource Advisor. Is it safe to go outside if you have asthma? And is it better to walk in the morning, like 7 to 9, or later in the day?
Okay, let me answer the asthma question first. Is you know, that's going to be a self-determination that you're going to have to make. You know, you may consult with your doctor, but you know, I would probably, if you're in the fire area, you know, in these communities, I'd probably just carry my inhaler with you. You know, just take general precautions. As a rule of thumb, I always say, if you could smell smoke, you're breathing smoke. So just because you could see smoke up on the hillside doesn't mean you're necessarily being impacted. It's just a rule of thumb. If you could smell smoke, you could breathe smoke. And if that's the case, probably don't go out. There's going to be mornings that are going to be smokier than others. And there's going to be mornings where one side of the fire is really smoky and the other, if you live in the other side, it's not. So it's really going to be dependent.
I have one more for you. Should we wear masks outside? What are the negative effects if one is exposed to the smoke, and what symptoms should we look for?
Yes, you should definitely wear your mask when you're outside, when you can't social distance and stuff like that. But if you're out, hiking a trail or out, early morning and there's not a lot of people, yeah, you could probably get away with taking your mask off. A lot of the impacts that the majority of us will see, if you're healthy and stuff like that, you'll probably just get some respiratory issues, maybe coughing a little more than normal. You may find it a little hard to breathe, especially if you're going for a long hike or something like that. If you're more sensitive, if you're like in the sensitive group where smoke really causes maybe like asthma attacks, or I know for myself, it really causes me to get a lot of sinus headaches. Anytime I'm in smoke. So I limit myself to those times. And the best thing to do is probably just, if you smell smoke, stay out of smoke, maybe skip that day, and maybe not go for a walk.
All right, thank you, William. So, Sheriff or Marty, do we anticipate an actual evacuation order going into place for Dotsero or Gypsum?
I'll answer that one. That's in my lane, I guess. Do we anticipate it? No. Are we planning for it? Yes, but we plan for the worst. We're hoping for the best. We're working very, very closely with Marty and his people, with the Forest Service and everybody. We're constantly communicating. We're monitoring. We have what we call phase lines, which are certain things that operations is constantly keeping us up to date on, that we're checking back on them, watching the progress with the teams that are out there. They're constantly calling in. If it hits certain points that we're looking for, we will have more detailed discussions and we will make a decision at that point. Again, it's been very good today that nothing has really come that direction. I know that the teams, and I think it was addressed, there's a whole bunch of work that's going on between Dotsero and Gypsum and the fire line. And those guys have been out there just killing themselves to get this done, to protect those areas. We've identified the critical issues. So do I expect it? No. It is in pre-evacuation still, and we encourage people to remain that way, because it is. We can't say it's not. We can't say for sure that it won't happen.
And then what are the parameters that make the choice of pre-evac versus full evacuation for either of you?
Again, it's conversations between us. It's the sheriff's office and it'll be the law enforcement that actually makes the final call on that. But it's working very, very closely with them. It's going to be the weather conditions, the activity of the fire. If the work that they've done, is it holding the line back, or is it holding the fire back? And today it was. It's been doing very well, so I've been informed. There's a variety of different things that go on. We err on the side of caution, so we've set some of these phase marks where we're talking about to be very conservative, to give people enough time. But again, this is why we say pre-evac. They should have their bags packed. They should have their cars packed. They could actually leave the area. They should have a plan. So on a moment's notice, we put the call out that says evacuate the area. They know exactly where to go, and they leave immediately. They don't dawdle. They don't try to pack the last thing. They don't try to round up the kids. They're not all scattered all over the place. So pre-evac is just warning that it's a possibility, because it is heading that general direction. But depending on what the crew's doing and Mother Nature cooperating and everything else, we get it stopped, then we don't have to worry about it.
So we're also getting a couple of questions from the Spanish live feed that we're doing. One of them was, can you have someone speak, well, could I have someone speak on propane lines and how safe they are? So I don't know who wants to take that question.
Propane lines they've got many regulations, safety features that allow for, if it is impacted, if the fire is impacting that particular, that it is either underground, it is protected, or it is able to release the gas so we do not have any large kind of, explosion or anything else like that. So there are many different ways that we can protect the residences, the structures, or the facilities.
Thank you. And then for folks who have been evacuated since Tuesday, what is it forecast? Is there any timeline? Should they expect to be evacuated another week?
I cannot give you a timeline, and the reason being is that those individuals, those areas are in constant evaluation with Jeff, the other operations individuals on the area, and they're giving recommendations to the sheriff and the surrounding community. So as soon as we feel that it is no longer a threat, we will contact the sheriff and then make a determination with that.
Great, thank you. Jennifer, we're showing 7 p.m. Wrap it up.
All right, thank you very much. That concludes our Grizzly Creek community meeting this evening. I want to thank everyone for the presentations, the great questions that have come in that were answered. We will have another community meeting on Tuesday, August 18th at 6 p.m. That will be aired from the Garfield County Commissioners Hall like we did on Friday. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you all for tuning in.